Imagine standing in a forest 40,000 years ago, starving, staring at a bush covered in bright red berries. No internet, no book, no label telling you what happens if you eat them. Just you, your empty stomach, and a 50-50 gamble that could either feed you or kill you within the hour. This is a decision your ancestors had to make thousands of times, in thousands of forests, across hundreds of thousands of years. And somehow, against truly brutal odds, enough of them got it right often enough that you exist right now watching this. So, how did they actually do it? The answer is a layered survival system built into your body that you're still using today, even if you've never once thought about it. The first layer is something you were literally born with: your tongue. Humans carry roughly 25 different bitter taste receptors. Scientists call them TAS2RS, and they didn't show up by accident. They evolved specifically to detect plant toxins. Bitterness in nature is basically a chemical warning label. Plants that don't want to get eaten often produce bitter tasting compounds specifically to make animals spit them out before swallowing. Your ancestors who happened to find bitter things unpleasant were more likely to survive than the ones who didn't notice or didn't care. Over enough generations, that aversion got baked directly into human biology. Sweetness worked as the opposite signal. Sugar generally meant calories, energy, something safe to eat in a hurry. So early humans evolved a strong attraction to sweet tastes and a strong suspicion of bitter ones, which is a survival hack so effective that toddlers today still instinctively make a disgusted face the first time they taste something bitter, completely unprompted, with nobody teaching them to do it. But taste alone wasn't enough. Plenty of dangerous plants taste perfectly fine right up until the moment they make you violently sick. Or worse. So humans developed a second system, layered right on top of taste, testing in small amounts. This wasn't some clever invented strategy. It's closer to instinct. When encountering something new, the safest approach is to eat the smallest possible amount first, then wait. If nothing bad happens within a few hours, eat a little more. Wait again. Very few plants on Earth are so toxic that even a tiny taste will kill you outright. Most poisonous plants will instead make you nauseous, give you stomach cramps, or cause vomiting and diarrhea. Deeply unpleasant, but survivable. That unpleasant reaction is actually the entire point. It's the plant's chemical defense system delivering a clear message: don't eat me again. Once one person in a group got violently sick from a specific berry, everyone watching learned an enormously valuable lesson without having to test it themselves. This is the third layer, and arguably the most powerful one: social learning. Humans are exceptionally good at watching what happens to other people and adjusting our own behavior accordingly, long before we ever developed written language to record any of it. Psychologists have actually tested this exact instinct in human infants, and the results are almost eerie. In one experiment, babies watched an adult either eat a piece of food while smiling or look at it and say something like "you" while making a disgusted face. Even infants too young to talk reliably reached for the food the adult had approved of, and avoided the food the adult had rejected. We are apparently wired, from birth, to treat other people's reactions to food as critical safety information. That instinct almost certainly kept an enormous number of your ancestors alive long before anyone could explain why a particular berry was dangerous. Here's a layer that's easy to overlook entirely: watching animals. Early humans paid close attention to what birds, monkeys, and other animals around them were eating. If monkeys were happily eating a certain fruit with no apparent ill effects, that was a strong, free clue that it was probably safe for humans too. This wasn't foolproof. Animal digestive systems don't always match human ones. Birds, for example, can safely eat the berries off poison ivy, a plant that causes brutal reactions in human skin and can be dangerous if ingested. So watching animals was a useful starting hint, not a guarantee, and it's likely more than a few early humans learned that particular lesson the hard way. Then there's the layer that built on every generation before it: accumulated knowledge passed down through a group. Once a community figured out, through bitter trial and error, which plants were safe, which needed special preparation, and which to avoid entirely, that information didn't disappear when the people who learned it died. It got passed to children who passed it to their children. Over enough generations, this turned into something close to an oral encyclopedia of local edible plants, refined continuously by the accumulated mistakes and discoveries of everyone who came before. This is also where cooking enters the picture, and it's a genuinely brilliant survival technology. Heat breaks down a lot of toxic compounds in plants that would otherwise be dangerous raw. Certain roots, beans, and tubers that are mildly to seriously toxic uncooked become perfectly safe, even nutritious once properly cooked. Once early humans figured this out, an entire category of food that used to be off limits suddenly opened up, dramatically expanding what a group could safely eat in a given environment. Put all of these layers together, and you start to see something remarkable. Bitter taste receptors flagging likely toxins, small portion testing limiting the damage from mistakes, watching other people's reactions as a fast, low cost warning system, observing animals for extra clues, passing hard earned knowledge down through generations, and eventually cooking, which chemically transformed what counted as edible in the first place. None of this required writing, science, or formal education. It just required humans being extremely good at noticing patterns, learning from each other, and occasionally surviving a very bad afternoon after eating the wrong berry. It's worth pausing on how costly this learning process actually was. Every plant your ancestors eventually identified as safe likely cost someone, somewhere, a miserable bout of vomiting, or in worst cases, an actual death. The edible plant knowledge carried by every traditional culture on Earth represents an almost unimaginable amount of accumulated trial, error, and occasional tragedy, refined slowly over tens of thousands of years into something that could be taught to a child in a single afternoon. You still carry every part of this system right now, whether you've ever noticed it or not. That instinctive curled lip when you taste something bitter, that cautious first nibble when you try unfamiliar food, that instant skepticism when you watch someone else react badly to what they just ate. None of that is random. It's a survival toolkit built by tens of thousands of years of exactly the kind of forest gamble we started with, quietly running in the background of your own body every single day. So, next time you instinctively wrinkle your nose at something bitter or hesitate before trying a strange new dish, that's not pickiness. That's tens of thousands of years of ancestors who didn't get it right, quietly making sure you do.